Okay, welcome everyone who's watching. This is Yardell from Perkatech.com. This is going to be a video walkthrough of a blog post I just put onto my website called Going Local. This is the third in a four-part WordPress 101 series where I'm explaining to you the benefits of setting up a website with WordPress, and getting started with it. If you're interested, you've heard a lot about it, want to give it a try, but not sure where to start, well, this series is showing you how to get started. Now, as far as this post is concerned, I've been trying to make them as beginner 101-ish as possible, but this last post had to go into some more technical aspects in order for me to put in all the information you would need. So after I did the Word post, I said, let's go back and do more of a direct walkthrough so you can see some of the parts in action. Now, going back even further, if you've been following the articles, in the previous one I showed you pretty much how to go to WordPress.com and get a website up and going there in literally 5-10 minutes of that, and have something you can experiment with there. Which then raises the question, well, why would you do this? If you can just go to WordPress.com, get a site set up there and experiment, why would you bother going through this extra trouble of setting up a local development space and having that on a computer and doing it that way? That's a fair question. And yeah, here are some reasons that you may consider going through the couple extra hoops, but not too many. One, you may not have consistent internet access to work at WordPress.com. Depending on your circumstances, finances, wherever they may be, you just might not be able to regularly go to WordPress.com and set up a site there and play around for on a regular basis. But through this process, you would have a website built on the same technology that would be local, wouldn't really require an internet connection. It would help, but it wouldn't be necessary, and you can still experiment. Your second reason for doing this is you may be particularly concerned with your brand. Now, I just recently finished creating a website for a client where they were very adamant about the site being built offline in a local space and not being made live anywhere until it was ready to go and for them to advertise and shop around. So again, this is another reason that you may want to go local with a site. A third potential reason is that you have a production site up, but you want a mirrored development site to experiment and test new things with, like themes, plugins, updates, and the like. Now, this may be a situation where you have some type of e-commerce site where you have regular clients, you're making sales, and you can't afford the site to be down for too long, or you're not in a position to take too many chances with it. So in this case, you would have the production site set up on a hosting space somewhere. You would leave that alone, but you would mirror a development site in a local space where you could tweak, modify, play around with that. And when you're certain that the changes you want to make are right and they won't break anything, then you upload them to the production site. So to get started, the first thing we have to do is we need to set up whatever computer you're doing this at as a very rudimentary web server. And we'll get rid of this. To do that, we are going to be going to this software, MAMP, which is an acronym for My Apache, MySQL, PHP, which are the bare minimum technologies you need to have any computer work as a web server to serve a web page. The one thing that I think you'll like about this software and that I liked is that the interface is very minimalist, is very simplistic. There's not a lot that can really trip you up, and it has a Windows variant and an OS X variant. Now, this walkthrough is being done on Windows 10, but if you want to follow along on your Apple laptop or computer, you probably won't be seeing too many differences. And the website is right here. You're going to go to www.mamp.info, and that's how you can find these guys. Now, for those of you who are saying, well, what about those of us who are using some variant of Linux? Then you'll want to use this, which is XAMPP. You can find here at just apachefriends.org. Now the thing about this software is that it has variants for Windows and Linux and OS X. Now I've used this once before, and it does print the same thing MAMP does, and you'll get the same work out of it. The thing is, their interface isn't quite as intuitive, and it's not hard, but you have to find things, dig a little deeper to find things that you'll just see in MAMP. But if you manage to get yourself through a Linux install, you'll probably have no problems finding your way around this. But for the purposes of this walkthrough, we're going to be going with these guys. So what you'll do is you'll come to a free section and you'll do the download. You'll choose whichever variant you want, then you'll download it. Now I've already done it over here. So its size is 293 megabytes, so it's a pretty sizable package. It may take about a minute to really get to you. But since I already have this ready, we're going to click on this. And for this setup, you can pretty much follow the prompts. The only thing you want to look out for is this second window where it will ask you want to install MAMP Pro in addition to MAMP. The answer to this is going to be no for the purpose of this walkthrough. You just want the home development version where you can play around in your own space and do your own thing. So we'll click next. We're going to accept the agreement. Won't waste our time reading it. MAMP. And see, this folder already exists because I actually did this install earlier, but I had to cut that recording. I ran into a bit of a problem I had to work out, so this is kind of a take two. It was more like a take four, but that's an aside. So yeah, let go to that folder again. Click next. You want a desktop icon? And we're just going to sit here and let this program spin its wheels. And just to pass the time a bit, I'll tell you the joke I heard. The one that's about service agreements being a lot like the Bible, where nobody really reads it. They just kind of scroll to the bottom and click agree. Try a little humor there to pass the time. Just going to spin this wheel. And in case you haven't figured out already, this is my first ever crack at screenshotting or webcasting, if you will. So Yeah, if I seems like I stutter or slump or fall off a bit, just bear with me. I will get better. So, okay, the install is done. It says MAMP and MAMP Pro, but you just have the MAMP, so don't worry too much about that. Click Finish. When that's done, now you're going to have this icon on your desktop, just the MAMP, the happy little gray elephant. You double click on this, and now it's saying Apache needs open port 80. Please fact use. Now, yeah, you may run into this problem. This is actually the issue I ran into before when I was trying to set this up, but no, we'll keep this in. So you'll see what to do if you have this problem yourself. So, okay, I think I just found the issue. I think what it may have been was that I had Skype open on my desktop, which apparently uses port 80, but now that's okay. So let me just go back through this more time. So where we left off, you had just got finished downloading MAMP, and you went through the install. You got this happy little guy on your desktop. If you double click on this, yeah, you'll get this quiet little window that pops up, and your server will basically turn itself on. So if you click Open Start Page, and we're going to go over to this window now. Get rid of those. All right, so now you see you have a screen that looks similar to the MAMP screen that you saw at mamp.info, but if you'll take a look at the address, you're at the local host, and this basically shows that you're running this locally and not off the internet. So you've got the start of this going. Now before we move on, a few things you'll want to be mindful of is all this information here under MySQL, your host, your port, these usernames, you'll want to write those down because you're going to need those later for the WordPress install. Also, if you come back over here, if you look under Preferences and you go to Web Server, this folder here is where you're going to have to drop in the raw WordPress files you're going to be downloading from WordPress.org very shortly. And it doesn't have to go here. This is the default. If you want it to be something else, then you want to change this right now, but we're just going to leave it the default. So we're going to do OK. Now, before we even get to the WordPress install, there's one thing you're going to have to do with your your web server, and that is basically to set up a database strictly for WordPress. How you'll do this is you'll click on PHP My Admin here, and when you get into this back end, this is where all your databases are being managed. Now here you're going to click on Databases. And when you get out here, the only section you need to deal with is this one right here, which is Create Database. Now, the WordPress install will assume that the database that has to connect to is going to be called WordPress. Now, if you're fine with going with that default, then you just type in WordPress here and leave it alone. Again, same as with the actual folder for the website. If you want it to be something else, then pick the name you want here and then just take note of that later. So we've got that here. Now as far as the collation, you want to scroll down to UTF. You want this here, UTF-8 General CI, and basically that just denotes like what character set the database is going to be using. All you'll need to know is that, actually, I think there's a better one we could use. But no, general is fine. This just says, you know, what character set the database is going to use. All you need to know is this is universal, which will work fine with WordPress. So you're going to click Create. And here you'll see database WordPress. WordPress database has been created. So now we're done with this. So what we can do now, we're going to go to WordPress.org and we're going to here download WordPress again, and again we'll ask download one more time, and we're going to get the zip file, and we'll let it go to the desktop. That's where we wanted that. And that one that's pretty much done. So we're going to come back over here, and this is the WordPress file here. We're going to just right click and just extract all. WordPress 452, extract. So, okay, so the file's extracted. We're going to go into this folder. These are your WordPress assets that you're going to be copying into this folder right here, C MAMP htdocs. So we're going to highlight all of this. We're going to do a copy, and we're already here. C MAMP htdocs, and we're just going to do a paste. So now the WordPress base install is in the document root, and if everything goes according to plan, as it should, if we go back over here and we just cut away all of this, where you just want localhost and whatever port you set. Okay, here we have the start of the WordPress setup. And again, this is running locally. So we're in the home stretch here. So let's see now. And we're going to pull this over here. So now we're going to click continue. And this is where it's telling you to have all this information ready that you needed before. So you want to get that ready. The table for prefix is going to pick that by default, so you don't have to worry about having that. So let's go. So let's see. The database name, again, by default is going WordPress. if you didn't try to change it earlier in the back end, then this can be left alone. Username and password is root. And oh, I see. It's okay. It's 8889. I could have sworn that last one was an 8. Alright, so we got WordPress, root, locals 889. Submit one more time. Okay, now we're good. So it says, alright, you've made it through this installation. WordPress can now communicate. Now we're going to run the install. Now this last part is where you're going to personalize your site a little bit. And none of this is set in stone, so you don't have to just mull too much over it. Site title, I guess. WordPress local demo, username. We're just going to go with root and root. And yes, ideally you'll pick something a bit more stronger than these. It's very weak, but just for these purposes, yes, we're using a weak password. We don't care. Email, we're just going to go to foo@bar.com. And we just want to discourage search engines from indexing this site. We're going to install WordPress. And if you get this, your WordPress site is locally set up. So if we come up here and do a and if this comes up, 89. Let's do 8. Oh, see, I thought it was 8 earlier. Well, guess regardless, here is your website, the demo one, on your computer or laptop where you set this up at. And this is the base of what you have. Now, in order to get into the back end of this, to start playing around with this, it's going to be, you're going to add to the top of this WP admin. Let's do a quick zoom in on that. So this is what you're looking at. You're going to go root, log in. And here's your back end where you can start to really just play around with your site. And here you can add pages, monkey with some of the default themes, or if you do have an internet connection, you can go to the plugin store and download some plugins and start playing around with some of those. So, okay, this should get you started on your local install. Hope this is helpful to you. Again, this was Yardell from Perkatech.com, and cheers.